Welcome to the final HVG Coffee Afternoon of 2020. I'm delighted to see you here today, and I'm really looking forward to today's talk. We've got two fantastic speakers with us today. We have Rob Jackson of Rob Jackson Consulting, who will be discussing Engage, the global voice of leaders of volunteer engagement. And we have Kay Thompson, who will be asking why wearing shoes that don't fit makes us better leaders, talking about influence and a bit of a hint of what's to come in January in next year. So hello, both of you. Thank you for coming along today. Today, we are going to start with Rob, who's going to share with us a little bit about Engage, the global voice of leaders of volunteer engagement. Welcome, Rob. How are you today?
Thanks. Well, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I've enjoyed the National Volunteering Forum all morning today, so I've zoomed out already, and I'm on Zoom until 10 o'clock tonight, so we'll keep this going. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to those of you that I think I pretty much have been on a Zoom call or in a face-to-face room at some point, not this year with most of you, but I'm Rob Jackson, Director of Rob Jackson Consulting Limited and a member of the steering group for HVG. But the capacity in which I am here today is as Editor-in-Chief of Engage. So Engage was formerly known until October the 15th this year as e-volunteerism. And e-volunteerism was set up by Susan Ellis and Steve McCurley, some of the very long-standing leadership gurus in the volunteer management space, in 2000 as the world's first online journal of volunteer management, volunteer leadership, which sounds pretty tame now, but back in 2000 was quite a revolutionary idea that there was going to be an online journal, because at the time, most of the publications like Volunteering Magazine and the Journal of Volunteer Administration were only in print. Social media didn't exist, and email was still relatively in its infancy. For things like email marketing and what have you. So after 20 years and after Susan sadly passed away in 2019, I was asked to take over the editorial team, which I've been a part of as a volunteer for almost 20 years. And the first thing I did was work with our editorial team to relaunch the journal for the future. Because if any of you ever saw the volunteerism page up to October the 14th this year, you will have seen that it looked like the internet of 20 years ago. It didn't look like the kind of modern thing that you would expect to see, and we didn't have any social media presence. So what I'm going to do very quickly is just share my screen so you can have a look at what Engage is. So this is the homepage of Engage, engagejournal.org. So as I say, it's a professional journal for leaders of volunteer engagement, and it's the global voice of leaders of volunteer engagement is how we pitch it. So it is published every quarter. A new issue is published every quarter. It's on the 15th of January, the 15th of April, the 15th of July, and the 15th of October. So our next issue is coming in the new year. And as you can see, we have a number of different sections. Ahead of the Curve and Ethics were brand new in October. Ahead of the Curve is all about technology and the role that it plays in volunteer engagement. It's quite amusing that a year ago, when we were talking about introducing that section, people still weren't massively using Zoom, etc. And of course, events overtook us during the course of the pandemic. Ethics is really, it's the first time we've ever created a space for people to discuss ethical issues. And the launch article, which you'll see in a second, was very much talking about code of practice, code of ethics for the sector. And in January, we'll be looking at the Council for the Certificate of Volunteer Administration, which is a global qualification based over in the US who have a code of ethics. I'm beginning to pull apart whether that's right for us. We publish 2 feature articles every quarter. We publish a points of view. We publish a research to practice, which went live yesterday, looking at some research that was done here around marketing and volunteer recruitment. So it's always pulling a kind of researchy angle into something practical. And we have a section called Voices, which is hearing from contemporary or past volunteer managers, people within our sector, and the stories that they have to tell. And one of the things that, if I just quickly jump in to the Engage library that we have in here, is 20 plus years of articles in e-volunteerism and now Engage. So we have hundreds of articles from dozens of authors on all kinds of topics. So you can see they're all sorted by section, by when they were published, by author, and by subject. And you can see what a huge range of subjects that we have got in here. If I just jump into one that may be more relevant for, I think we've got a heritage one. If not, we've definitely got a cultural arts one. And we can filter those, and you can jump in and you can see all the articles that we've published around cultural arts, including, hey, Danny, not that we sponsored, we planned this in advance, the article by Danny and Jim about revisiting the IWM North programme back in January 2016. The Points of View article that we publish every quarter is always free, and that is written by myself and Erin Spink. And the rest of it sits behind a paywall. So this is a paid subscription journal. I'll talk about that in a second. But you'll see that we have a huge amount of content in here, in mixing both audio, video, and written word articles. So if you want to look at our lead feature this time round, it was a piece by Adam Janes in Canada, looking at how the sector wasn't ready for volunteer deployment under COVID. How could we have been, but what are the lessons that we need to learn from that for the future? And we also have highlighted relevant content that is from our archive, from the Engaged library, that is relevant to what we're talking about in each issue. There's the ability for people to comment and access on this as well. So just a couple of other things, just very quickly to cover. One of the things that you're all immediately thinking is, okay, well, if it's behind a paywall, how much does it cost? So if I log out of the site and go into the Become a Member, one of the big things that I pushed for with this relaunched journal was that you were able to pay for it as a potential member, which is what we refer to our subscribers as, in pound sterling, because historically you've only ever been able to pay in US dollars. And we know that's a problem. Finance departments get a bit antsy when you start asking them to pay bills in US dollars or any other foreign currency. So you're now able to have a membership on a monthly basis or an annual basis and on the specific currency. So you can see here that annual membership in the UK is £45 a year. And if you do that on a monthly basis, it works out as £4.50 each month. So it's obviously a little bit cheaper to take out an annual membership. So effectively, for the price of a coffee, when we can all get back to the likes of Starbucks and Costa and Cafe Nero, you get access to 20 years worth and a growing library of resources around volunteer engagement, volunteer management from around the world. There are also group membership options. So AVM, members of AVM have access to Engage through their AVM membership, as do people taking part in the CPD program, for example, for volunteering Victoria in Australia. And we're always looking at options that we can, ways that we can kind of build that in. So that might be something, if people ask for it, that we could look at for HVG in future. The final thing just to say, because I mentioned it earlier, is you don't have to be a member in order to access the points of view. You do have to be a member to access the rest of the content. Obviously, you don't have to be a member to access our social media feeds. And we have a social media presence on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's all under this Engage Leaders of Volunteers. So Engage Love Vols, you'll find us if you search for that, on LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter as well. So we are always posting our existing content up there and links to previews where it's paid for content, as well as other relevant articles for leaders of volunteer managers around the world, leaders of volunteers, sorry, around the world. So you are completely free to follow if you don't currently follow Engage and join in the conversation there. And then hopefully at some point you would think about becoming a member as well. So that's me in terms of what I am talking about as a resource. I'm happy to take any questions if we've got any, Will and Rhiannon, or if anybody wants to unmute and jump in and ask a question.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for sharing about the relaunch of Engage. It looks fascinating. one question I have is, as HVG is a body representing a wide range of volunteer leaders in the heritage sector, if one of them is interested in and sharing their work, their experience, what is the process to
Sure.
to write an article or apply to talk?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, which is terrible because one of the things I've been saying to the rest of the Engage team at the moment is we should be pushing this as a development opportunity for people. So don't let them know that I said that, Will. If I go back to the screen share, one of the things that I can show you on here is there is an about page. And on here, there is an information about submissions. So we are always looking for people to contribute. You don't have to know which bit of the journal you want to contribute to. You just have to get in touch with an idea for an article. Our feature articles are normally in the order of 2,500 words. And we have a great guy, Andy Fryer, who represents Better Impact in Australia and New Zealand, who's our manuscript developer. So at any point, if you're interested, you can just get in touch with me. Or you can follow the guidelines for submission on here, and there's an opportunity for you to submit an article. Because I'm not logged in at the moment, you can't access that, but you can always send it through to me. We will support you completely, even if you're a first-time writer. We will support you in producing an article for us. If you're interested in any of the other areas, so for example, you're interested in writing something about ethics in heritage volunteering, or you've got some really interesting research that you'd like somebody to look at, again, by all means, use me as a first port of call. You can get me at my normal email address, which is rob@robjacksonconsulting.com, or you can contact us from the contact page on the website. We can put you in touch with whoever you need to be in touch with. And we would love for more people to contribute and more people to come from different kind of perspectives on volunteering to share. Because my experience from my international work is what we're doing in HVG is pretty different from what a lot of other countries are doing around certainly connecting up heritage volunteer managers. So.
Brilliant, thank you, Rob. Was there, in terms of content on there, as it's an international journal, is that also, as you just said, there's a different aspect to it from that international context. What would you say to anyone who's considering this? As what's the value and merits of learning from volunteer organisations from across the globe?
Well, I think I would sum it up best as, first of all, what somebody said to me the other day who joined, which is that you have to use Google a lot less now, because the chances are anything substantive around volunteer engagement is on here because of the kind of contributors we've had over the years. My experience from the international work is there is a lot more that we have that is similar about how we go about doing volunteer management in different countries than we generally give each other credit for. So I will go to Australia and I'll talk to a volunteer manager in a museum there, and they will insist that it's all completely different than it is in the UK. And whilst the legal framework might be, and maybe some of the cultural issues are, the nuts and bolts of volunteer management are exactly the same. You know, the discussions and debates about recruitment, references, supervision, recognition, planning Christmas events for volunteers, it's all exactly the same wherever you are in the world. And what I find incredibly valuable when I do the international stuff and when I've read stuff in the past is it actually reflects the same issues, but because it's reflected through a slightly different lens, it gives you a different angle and a different bit of learning and insight into it. So whether the content's from, New Zealand through to Hawaii or Japan or anywhere, we've had contributors from all over the world to this. There's always something that we can be learning through the content that's here.